Okay, if you are just seeing me for the first time, my name is Suleiman Babajia Usman, and if you are just seeing me for the first time in 2022, I said Happy New Year and welcome to the studios of Weekend Deal. It's always a pleasure to have you join us on the show. Now, quick one. Just how many are we in Nigeria? Yeah, a lot of people have struggled to answer this question because even in the website of National Population Commission, you will have 190 million Nigerians living in the country as we speak. You know, there are speculation, estimated, numbers from different quarters. Some say 197, some say 200, 207, different figures. And this is all happening because we've not been able to conduct census, population and housing census. And that is why we are in this, this situation, given suggestion. In fact, some are saying that by 2050, we are going to be over 400 million people, living in the country. And for some, that is population explosion. And given the fact that the economy is not growing at par with the population, they are suggesting that we're likely going to experience economic implosion. Now, definitely, we're going to be looking at some of these issues and also the education, the sector, as we engage 2022. Thank you for staying with us, and if you just join us, this is Weekend Deal, showing on the largest TV network in Africa. And today we encourage you to, send in messages, ask questions, because we are going to be having, the chairman of National Populations Commission join us, and some of his staff join us to talk about the forthcoming census. But for a fact that Nigeria has the largest population in Africa, and that keeps growing at 3.2%, projecting. In fact, this has led some people to conclude that by 2050, Nigeria will actually be the largest, population with third largest nation with a number of people that will be around 400 million or thereabout. Well, that is quite a number, but this is just a speculation. So let's take this background report put together by Francis Obi to have a grasp of what really we're going to be talking about on the show today. So let's say this.
Nigeria is the most populous country in the sub-Saharan Africa. Although Nigeria has not conducted a recent census, thereby making it difficult to know the nation's current population. According to the 2018 Nigerian Demographic and Health Survey released in 2017, Nigeria is estimated to have 206 million people.
First and foremost, the foundational challenge has to do with paucity of data and poor organizational, structure in terms of data as well. And so because of our poor data system, both in terms of its organization, infrastructure, support system, and so on, every other thing, gets affected, including our capacity to ascertain the exact number of the population in the country. Now, that again affects even our capacity to plan. We're only using projection in terms of our population.
If we are 200 million, we should know we are 200 million. But you hear this variously. Some will say 100 and about 198 million people. Some will say about 200 million people. Recently, some will tell you about 206 million. Some will say 209 million. That is what it is in Nigeria. For the fact that we have decided not to do what we are supposed to do. Our last census was in 2006.
Ironically, it is in the very poorest countries that women have the most children on the average. However, it is a common knowledge that the more educated a woman is, the fewer children she would bear. There is therefore an urgent need to increase the enrollment of girls in primary and secondary schools, especially in the most vulnerable areas.
When you think about girl education, we need to do that. But even when you educate the girl, so why are we not also educating the man? Who is the head of the house? Is it not the man? So it's not only the girl child that need to be enlightened. All of us need to be enlightened. We need to do more in the area of family planning education. If possible, we should introduce the implication of all this right in our secondary school curriculum.
The Central Bank of Nigeria is worried that the country's population is growing faster than its gross domestic product, GDP. The economy is obviously not growing fast enough to create the needed jobs for its unemployed population.
We're talking about insurgency today. We're talking about banditry. We're talking about kidnapping. Is the effect of overpopulation. And what does that mean? It means that you have so many deviants in your society, and the case of insurgency and all that we're having is as a result. People are not going to school. You know, somebody that has gone to school will have opportunity of thinking, what can I do? How do I survive? But we don't give that opportunity. The people we did not plan for, maybe in the last 20 years, 25, 30 years, are the people that are disturbing us today.
There is the projection that Nigeria's population will be well over 700 million. This is really scary when you take into consideration the reality of scarce resources that is available to live a decent and productive life. If at 206 million there is massive unemployment, poverty, hunger, and the death of a welfare state, imagine how it will be by 2050.
We must be courageous enough. See, there are a lot of sentiments. We have religious sentiment, we have political sentiment to this issue of population. And until we look straight into our faces and tell ourselves the truth that enough is enough, you shouldn't give birth to a number of children you cannot be financially responsible for. You should be able to plan for their education. You should be able to plan for their housing. You should be able to plan for their health. You should be able to plan for every basic need they actually need to have.
Educate our people. Once people are educated, you don't need to tell somebody, an educated person, that you should have a lean family. If we have parents that know that it is, if you cannot take care of a child, don't bring them, they will not do it. And that is where education will help.
If this trend is not nipped now, it could deepen poverty, escalate violence, and worsen unemployment. Therefore, our focus today will be on the state of Nigeria's population and the education sector. What should Nigerians expect from both sectors in 2022?
Yes, what should we expect from this, two aspects of, these two topics in 2022? But still staying on population, of course, I've said that we're going to experience population explosion, and you know what that means, and of course, population is supposed to be like a strength for any, country. But can we say that for Nigeria? Now, let's take a look at this next report, which states how well or how prepared are we to adapt to population explosion in case it happens in the country.
Population is pivotal for meaningful development and the planning exercise of any country, Nigeria inclusive. An accurate knowledge of the population characteristics and trends are therefore important for a positive and significant effect on the economic growth and development. Successive Nigerian governments during both colonial and post-colonial periods understood the importance of knowing the accurate population of its inhabitants as a basic tool for good development planning of the country. The population of Nigeria is increasing rapidly. Nigeria is the most populous country in Africa. Different figures have been released by various groups on the assumed population of Nigeria, and these some people attributed to the lack of proper data collating system.
The database is not there. It's not actually there. If the database is there, there won't be all this problem of this SERAP said this organization said this, Population Commission said this. No, there won't be. It's because the database is not just function.
And when you are talking about population, we have to differentiate between people who are citizens and non-citizens too. All of us reside inside the same state. So we need to know how many we really have. These are, the figures are questionable as far as I am concerned. Do we really know how many we have? I think the government should do something about it. We need a current figure to work with right now.
Going by the increasing number of migration, demographic and social characteristics like reproduction, it is feared that Nigeria's population may explode if not well handled. How prepared are we to adapt to population explosion?
Nigeria is a defined territorial base, has a defined territorial base with transient population and with variable factors in population management. Let me give an instance. What I would take in the southwest or in the south generally is different from what someone in the north would take in terms of childbearing. As a person from the southwest, I can afford to have a wife and 2 children. My other colleagues or counterparts in the north, maybe with religious factors or cultural affiliations, may want to go for 3-4 wives with 15-16 children. So it depends on how we manage the population, but I don't foresee a population explosion in Nigeria in the nearest future.
We are not prepared for population explosion. No. Who is going to prepare for it? The person that is going to prepare for it also have a harem of women. Nigerians are not prepared for population explosion. No.
The National Population Commission, NPC, are the ones saddled with the responsibility of collating the population figure for the country. What should Nigerians expect from the commission?
We've started with demarcation. We've started initially with demarcation that lasted for almost 10 months. Demarcation of the entire territorial space of Nigeria. There's delineation of constituencies to smaller units that can be adequately handled by a pair of enumerators during the actual census.
It is hoped that if accurate figures of the population is gathered and documented, the dividends of democracy will easily get to every part of the country in order to have meaningful development.
Well, there you have it. And of course, we have joined us in the studio, Honorable Nasir Isa Kwara. He's the chairman, National Population Commission. You are welcome to our studios.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Nigerians.
Okay. With him, we have Mrs. Ariola Olanipekun. She is the Director Census from a National Population Commission. You're welcome to our studios.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Nigerians.
Presently, we're about 216 million Nigeria. It could be more by the time you are done, or less by the time you're done with your census. Now, I know you just concluded your enumeration area demarcation.
Yeah.
Talk to me about its success and what should we expect in the forthcoming census, given the fact that it's like a foundation for the main census.
The chairman, Honorable Isa Kwara, led the team of professionals to conduct the very kind of demarcation we have seen in this country. And this leveraged so much on technology, and we had a paperless exercise. At the end of the day, we have EAs that are digital and that we can just plug into for enumeration. And for enumeration, we're also planning a paperless census.
When should we expect 2022 census? Is it the first quarter, second quarter, or third quarter?
Second quarter.
Okay. Second quarter, beginning of second quarter.
Yeah. But you know, so many things go into making census. Funding, the logistics, the technology, and so on and so forth. I want to plead with Nigerians, let's wait and hear the proclamation from Mr. President. Then we must mobilize ourselves and conduct the census that will today and tomorrow be acceptable to all Nigerians.
Well, there are concerns that Nigeria is already experiencing population explosion, and some people are really, really worried that given the fact that the economy is not growing at par with the population, of course, we'll talk about that, but after we must have taken this report, which focuses on population explosion. This is coming from NTA Kano.
In all societies, childbirth is a tale of joy. It is a process of recruiting new members into the societies. Although children are blessings to the families, population explosion may occur if care is not taken by controlling the numbers.
Birth control or child spacing is an ability of a couple or individual to attain a desired number of children they want, the spacing and the timing. The service provider will sit them down. There is what we call counseling. We'll tell them about all what family planning contains, the commodities we use, the side effects. After counseling, you allow the couple to make a choice.
Population explosion is associated with a lot of consequences in life. Birth control helps greatly for societal development. Nowadays, increasing sensitization, especially by health experts who interact with families in postnatal and antenatal delivery.
We have almost 15 million, getting to 16 million.
At the rate at which our client attend child spacing clinic as part of controlling, population control and the economic situation of our country. So child spacing has been accepted. People are coming, they have been attending our clinic, both couples and individual.
Birth control helps greatly for societal development.
We always advise the government to look at what is happening. There is serious population surge, which the government again will curtail the population explosion.
At times you have some clients that even the service fee, they cannot afford it. Despite that, we'll go ahead and give them.
In northern part of Nigeria, including Kano, misconception in the issue of culture and religion remain constant to birth control. Some clergymen took it upon themselves to sensitize citizens on the importance of birth control.
God expects every family, husband and wife, to bring to life for him children that they can mentor, they can nurture to become useful, relevant, productive to the society.
Everything categorically is specified and mentioned and treated in Islam. So the issue of birth control, there is in Islam. If there is a qualified doctor, for the sake of pleasure, I don't want to have a child, but let me take this woman, I marry her, is against Islam.
Our understanding, the husband and the wife come together and they agree this by our resources. This is the number of children we can bring up.
To have children that you cannot cater for their education, their health, their school, and everything is haram in Islam. To have people that you can treat them is unaccepted in Islam.
Although child spacing is being accepted by the people, experts are of the opinion that it involves with a lot of challenges.
Have it from that report, of course, birth control as one way to, check population explosion. It's a dicey thing, given the fact that we are from different cultural or religious, background. But we still have the chairman and director of Census here with us from National Population Commission. Now, chairman, birth control. How can we control the population growth of Nigeria?
It is an issue of population management. Family planning. We have to go out on advocacy to educate, enlighten people on the number of children you want to produce, the ideal number of children that you have to produce, and it's a decision for the family between the husband and wife. This is our resources, and it can cater for so children. So we plan to have so children. Taking care of the spacing as well as the number, so that you can provide quality education for them. They will help themselves in the future, they will help the family and help the society at large.
How do we begin to change the mindset of people, given the fact that it's a difficult terrain, a difficult territory?
Thank you. Just in addition to education, which the Honorable Chairman just deals as a possible solution that is encouraging parents to educate their children, we can also try to engage the religious leaders to sort of change the mind, to give messages and educate their followers on the need to take on the number they can actually cater for, and not leave childbearing to game of chance or as act of God.
Talk to us about census migration.
Okay.
Yes, census migration, because it's an issue. Because some feel that, if I'm residing in Lagos and I'm from Adamawa State, if there is census, I need to go back to Adamawa. It's really an issue. Now, as director of census, you are better placed to talk to us about this.
Yes, census migration, just as you have really explained, just like the personal belief of an individual that I must contribute to the population of my own place of origin, which in most cases do not really make much meaning at the end of the day, because you are residing in a place and all that we are planning for, the infrastructure, are supposed to be, you are supposed to enjoy it where you usually reside. So therefore, moving from where you reside to where you have left, maybe since December, and you are not there till another December, is like you are distorting the structure of the population.
Let's take this next report from NTA Abuja that talks about security and the new approaches that we can help cope insecurity in the country.
As the year 2022 unfolds, Nigerians from all walks of life have shown concern on the state of security in the nation and how the nation can be rescued from the myriads of challenges currently stunting its development and threatening its existence as one corporate entity, calling on troops, the police and other security agencies to step up in the fight against insurgency, banditry, kidnapping, farmers, herders clashes and related crimes.
Security administration is like a football match. You only notice goals scored, but you know how many goals the keeper must have saved.
That's true.
So in every situation where you have one criminal possibly, succeeding in causing untoward development, there must have been series of arrests, series of prevention made. The idea that if you make a report, it comes back to you. So people are already apprehensive of that, and there's that withdrawal syndrome. We are doing awareness and conscientization on that. In 2022, we've employed some measures that possibly will continue to yield security dividends. We are at the moment trying to employ surveillance mechanism because we have to move from manual surveillance to digital surveillance, and we already have a pilot, project on that, which I know. Security business is very expensive. Yeah. If we have to depend on, maybe budgetary allocation alone, we might not be able to go very far. So we are at the moment looking at how to create a sustainable funding environment. We are looking at the option of trust funds.
President of the Senate, Aman Lawan, has advised the federal government to sustain adequate funding of security agencies in the 2022 budget. To this end, security agents like the police, army, and navy have put strategies in place for 2022.
No, we are not afraid. So we have done it in the day before the Christmas and to the New Year. There was rumor going around that some people are coming to bomb Abuja, do this, attack Abuja, do this and do that. So I came to the television and told them nothing like that will happen because we are in charge. And our system for this 2022 is that we are bringing a concept of policing that is continuous attack. Crime fighting is like football, continuous attack. We take the word to the criminals, to their dens. We take it to where they are. And that is our concept for 2022. Continuous attacking anything that is crime, that is an energizer to crime, we must attack it. We don't need to wait for anything to happen before we go for a reaction. No. With the management team in FCT, with what we are having now, that is what we are doing.
This is what we call Operation Show of Force. You can see, it involves every agency in Abuja here. And the aim of this operation is to send a warning signal to who be hoodlums and any criminal elements around here. Just to tell them that they should have a rethink. We've been hearing information here and there that some criminal element they are trying to penetrate Abuja or whatever. But I can tell you loud and clear that such is not going to be entertained in Abuja. That's why we are warning them, even the parents of the criminal, to warn them that here is not going to be allowed. Such thing will not be allowed there. And anybody that thinks that he can take law into his hand, we are ready. The criminals should find a way to live. That is the message. And at the same time, they should start thinking in the positive direction. For the law-abiding too, not to fold their hands. When you see something, say something. Volunteer information. When information given to us, undiluted information, untainted information, it will be processed.
As a citizen, you can contribute to these by knowing your neighbor, getting involved in community policing, intelligence and information gathering, among others. As citizens transit in and around the country.
Okay, now we have your messages coming in, and then of course the number will be displayed on the screen. Keep them coming. If there's a question you want to ask, observation, comment, just keep writing. We share your thought with the rest of the viewers. Now this one says, good morning, I wish the commission will give us accurate and accepted census, and how will the commission identify non-Nigerians from, this one is coming from Akinlola Olade from Ilorin. You want to respond to that very quickly?
The issue of enumeration, we're not just enumerating Nigerians. Anybody that
lives in Nigeria,
yeah, we count him, but he will not be considered as a Nigerian, but will be counted as somebody who is residing in Nigeria, non-Nigerian citizen residing in Nigeria. So the question of how do we know?
How do you identify if they are Nigerian? Of course, when you ask them,
yeah,
you get...
Naturally, they should say.
Yeah.
And if they don't say, we are going to every household. Of course, you can also cross-check and find out, yes, these people said are they Nigerians or non-Nigerians? They also confirm that.
Now, quickly, some are saying that the census, okay, maybe you're looking at my local government, Agay local government now, yes. If we have more number of people from Agay, that means you're going to have more money will come to Agay local government. There are people with that thought, and some are saying that maybe during the election, that will count for you and all of that. So, really, why is the number so important for people? And should that not be a concern for them?
The number should be important to the people and especially to government and businessmen.
Okay.
To the government, it is important for them to be able to plan for the development of the people. The government is all about ensuring the welfare of its citizens. If the population of an area has increased tremendously, there will be pressure on the infrastructure around the area.
Yeah.
So government will now plan for augmentation of this infrastructure.
Yeah.
So it is essentially for planning and for the economic development of the people. And for a businessman who is, for instance, producing this kind of ware, if the population also increases, he knows that there will be high demand there, so he will plan an increase in production of what is producing so that he can meet the demands of the market.
This one says, good morning, presenter. Your program is good and it has helped us to know the exact figure of what Nigeria is now. At least it will help them in research development and all of that. And so I'm looking forward to be part of the census process. I'm sure he was already presenting himself already. You say you have a portal that will, take care of all of this for people who are interested to be part of it, right?
We have a criteria set out as well. That is the requirements to be qualified. So if you are qualified, you will share the link, the website where you can now apply to. And you will have to apply to your local government because we want the recruitment to be as localized as possible. We do not want people to go too far from place where they reside. So as much as possible, we want a kind of balanced participation of all.
Now, how confident should Nigerians be about 2022 census? That first it will hold and it will be credible and of course something that will be nationally accepted and internationally as well.
We in the Commission have done something that has never been done in the past, and even in Africa, Nigeria is the first country to do it, providing this electronic EA frame for the country.
Well,
that's enumeration area frame for the country. We can use it for census, we can use it for survey, we can use it for...
And I know that it is indigenous. Thank you very much for sharing your thought with us. We've been chatting with Honorable Nasir Issakwara. He's the chairman of the National Population Commission, together with Mrs. Ariola Olanikbekun. She's the Director of Census from National Population Commission. Thank you for sharing your thought with us this morning.
Thank you very much for inviting us.
All right, now we go on a break, and after that, we'll divert our attention to something else. It's still a work in progress about what needs to be done in order to check the population explosion in the country, most especially as it concerns, having laws to back all of this. Now, security, of course, has been a huge challenge in recent time for Nigeria, and a lot of people are doing different things to ensuring that we cope this menace in the society. Now, NTA Maiduguri is looking at community policing and the need for intelligence gathering. So let's take a look at this.
It is the inspiration of every government to guarantee the safety and security of its citizens, as citizens want to feel safe and protected from any form of danger or threat. Considering the crucial role of security of any nation, therefore, the task of eradicating insecurity in Nigeria is paramount.
The challenge we have is because of our social cultural norms. We tend to hide information. I may know my neighbor, but am I ready to tell on him? That's a problem you always find security men having. You see, security men can only spare you through you. He does not perform magic. It's the information you give, it's the way you lead him that he cannot scare you. He can only scare you through you. But we have this perception that if somebody is a security man or an organization is a security organization, they can perform magic and detect who is wrong and then come out with it and stop him from doing wrong. It is not possible.
Security matters are not only entrusted to the government and security personnel.
It is very, very important. In fact, now that I'm our theater command in Maiduguri has changed their name from Lafia Dole, which is a coalition, to Hadin Kai. Hadin Kai means cooperation and then collaboration, which is very, very good. But that collaboration should start even within the security sector itself. The DSS, the military, police, civil defense, everybody, including the vigilantes, they should know, in fact, when they get this information, who do they pass it to? But then you see them, all of them are struggling and scampering for dominance, control, power, and leadership. So much so that, in fact, nobody, in fact, even you who has the information will be lost as to who do you report this information to. So the key is proper coordination, then collaborating and then cooperating with the locals so that you effectively gather it, you effectively disseminate and pass it, and then the responders appropriately take it up.
The local government system, as we knew it before, has collapsed. And you know, before, when the local government system has been functioning properly, you have the hamlet head, the village head, district head, whatever, and so on. It goes up. The information goes up. And this information, any stranger, anybody whom they suspect, or reason to suspect that it's something else, would be informed through this kind of channel.
All the details and reports must not be politicized and kept in drawers. They must be read out, possibly name and shame the culprits, no matter their position or status in the society. Name them and shame them, prosecute them within a very short time for others to see that it is not going to be easy, not to even try it at all.
Hence, safety and security of citizens is a pride and honor of a nation.
Yeah, we all must play our roles in ensuring that we have a safe environment. And now we have a guest who just joined us in the studio. She is Honorable Rosemary Ojochenemi Oshikoya. She's an educationist, and you are welcome to our studios.
Thank you.
And when I say educationist, she's actually more than that. She's, you know, an embodiment of knowledge. And right now, let's just take this next report coming from Thelma Obaze, and she's looking at education, the projection for 2022. I know that there's an incremental, there's an increase in budgetary allocation for education sector, that is in the 2022 Appropriation Act. So let's take this report, and after that we'll engage our guest.
In a keenly competitive world such that ours has become, valuable and impactful education is a vibrant tool for survival and for success.
Education, like other sectors of the Nigerian political economy, suffered. And we had issues with funding, we had issues with quality, but certainly not with standards. Our curriculum is one of the best in the world. But whether we are able to attain and achieve that curriculum is what we should be talking about. Tertiary education participation in Nigeria should be higher and better.
When we identify processes that make great impact, especially In the educational sector, we must be responsive to the needs of those who can benefit. That way, we continue a cycle of accountability and sustained development.
The school you attended from 70s, 80s, 90s is not the same institution we are witnessing today. Teaching is by rumor in terms of population. Students are not sitters. Now, what are you teaching? You are teaching in a class where other students are asking the ones that are behind the window, what did he say? That is learning by rumor.
In a way, a teacher is also a student because valuable lessons are learned over time from countless classes taught.
Government must invest on education so that we can also invest in our future. Education is the passport for the future, and education is power to even change the world.
Now more than ever before, students need to be more diligent about positive strategies that can impact their educational outcomes.
The government must come and attend to university education so that we will not lose it as we've lost public secondary schools, public primary schools.
What is critical and of the utmost importance is that to raise responsive adults who can be independent, honest, focused, progressive leaders, everyone must be involved. Parents, teachers, society too.
Most of us, people ahead of me, those who are in position of authority now, enjoyed scholarship. They enjoyed so good. I know there is an attempt now to bring it back because we have realized that the stoppage has caused a lot of havoc, a lot of damage to the education system.
For growth, for progress, for sustained development for Nigeria, a vibrant educational system at all levels is a must.
A vibrant, education sector at all levels definitely is critical to ensure that we have that sustainable development that is our goal, or indeed the goal of any nation. And like I introduced earlier, our guest is seated with us. Let me remind you, she is Honorable Rosemary Ojoche Nemi Oshikoya. You are welcome once again.
Thank you.
Now, picking up from that report, or rather, given a different opinion by some expert in quote, they are predicted, or rather they are predicting a bleak 2022 for the education sector, given the fact that there's banditry, insecurity, incessant ASU strike, polytechnics on strike, and then paucity of fund in the education sector and all of that. Do you share that sentiment?
I think it wouldn't say that it is bleak, but I would want to say we've come up with a sense of realization that a lot of things have not worked. We might have looked at issues in pockets, but maybe it is now time to go back again and do a holistic system review.
It's interesting that you're talking about holistic, system review, and of course we'll talk about curriculum, the need to review the curriculum as we, advance in this conversation. But quickly, you talk about over-centralization of, the education sector, and I know that there has been a consistent effort by this administration to ensuring that they increase the budgetary allocation for the education sector. A lot of people are still saying that it's not enough. But what about the states? What can we do differently to ensuring that we supply the funds necessary or needed to, to develop the sector, to make it, achieve the aim while it exists, why it existed in the first place?
Okay, you see, a question that comes to mind is when you said Nigeria's budget for education. It's what I look at the federal government budget for the Ministry of Education. And then, excuse me, and I use that as a benchmark to say this is Nigeria's total funding of education. It is not very correct. Because now, pick up almost every ministry. you would find that Nigeria allocates funding for education in different other ways. You remember when under the British colonial era and post-British colonial era, when the concept of grant aiding comes about. The concept of grant aiding is government wants to provide some sort of support for manpower, depends on how it is. I remember then that debate raged on when I was a commissioner. What is grant aiding? Is it government takeover of education institutions, particularly in the northern states as at that time? But that's the conversation for another time. But the support that government was giving from an education, Western education based, driven by missionaries, supported by government, partially in view, which is where the concept of grant aiding comes, to what is assumed to be government takeover of institutions that were supposedly running. But the question I would ask again, talking about the bleak future, after the takeover, in quotes, and the over-centralization of control, are our educational institutions doing better, particularly at the basic level? So it tells that the point at which government wakes up and said, I am now the one who oversees all of this, I am now in control of that, people shy back, people no longer contribute. And then you find at the end of the day, the same community people will destroy the school. Children are sitting on the ground, and it becomes, it's not anybody's problem. Because how? It is government's problem, the usual Nigeria thing that has gone there. So I think the situation we find ourselves now has to do with a lot of going back to the drawing board. And there's a proverb in my language that says, where your head becomes light, that is where you lost your load somewhere along the line. So the point at which communities were building schools, communities were establishing community grammar school, they were taking ownership of education, they had a stake. They were co-partners. But by the time you start from 1977, where we begin to run the 6334, where government assumes all control of education, you dictate what needs to be done, you find it is a departure from the previous one, where you find in the Western District, in the Eastern District, they had education policies. There were education commissions. They derived what they needed to do. They devised education based on what their people need. They set up their own goal. But now you set up a flat system. And then you tell everybody, meet up with that. And people have shied back. I think this dynamics of change is calling our attention to what needs to be. I also do agree with you. I know from the period I was state commissioner in 2018 for education, I recall the current minister for education, Malam Adamu Adomui, in one of the national council days become an issue. How do you fund education? Because at that time, I think you needed so much money, too many zeros that would have to be for you to run these ones. And the idea is, it is not realistic expectation to expect that government by itself and on its own can fund education to the standard which it needs to be. But the Constitution said something which is interesting. Education is a co-shared responsibility between the three tiers of government. And you know that even when you're talking about that, basic education is the prerogative of the local government. It is their responsibility. Secondary education belongs to the state government. When you get to tertiary, federal takes over control. And then for a long time, secondary education was orphaned, until, thank God for the current government, we now have a National Senior Secondary Education Commission, which helps to bridge that gap. And then you find that somewhere along the line also, because of the too many schools you have to be managed by the local government, manpower became an issue. How do you fund teachers? Who's responsible for funding teachers? That same funding for teachers at the local government level is co-shared with education, is co-shared with chieftaincy, is co-shared. And then you find a whole lot of questions about money not being available for providing.
Talking about money not being available, we know that funding has been the major issue between ASU and the federal government. They keep going back and forth, and that's why we have incessant strike here and there. And even in 2022 already, they are threatening strike. Now, what needs to be done differently in order to stop this strike? Because it has become a menace, you know, affecting the education sector, most especially the tertiary education in the country.
How strange does it look to you if I share with you some of the conversations I've had that tertiary education is not mandatory and compulsory?
Interesting.
Fine. Basic education is mandatory and compulsory. Every child has a right to be trained, to be educated. And then, in fact, if you look at the Universal Basic Education Act of 2004, what it says is once you are a child in Nigeria, you have a right to education, particularly at basic education level. So government has responsibility, and it says, what is basic education in Nigeria? Maybe there's need to have that understanding again. That when you look at education, currently as we have them, we have the 9-3-4 system. 9 being that from primary education all the way to junior secondary school, 6 years of primary education, 3 years of junior secondary school education. By Nigerians law is compulsory, it is mandatory, it is free. But then certain other things goes up with that one a lot of people are silent about or maybe unaware about. That the law says before you finish GSS 3, you should have real life skills. Skills for livelihood, skills for employment, skills. You see, that achieves the goal, the national goal of a self-reliant nation. Because if everybody acquire real tangible skill, not theoretical learning anymore. And you see, with that conversation comes up the vocational skills that a child have to. You remember then, you have to go to every school. It is mandatory for you to offer 1 out of 39 or 40-something vocational skills that are available. At that point, then you find there's a disconnect in secondary school, which is where the state governments have responsibility for. Because federal governments established the unity colleges as a model to show states how they should be run. But then, like the debate goes on, it's controversial whether all the federal university colleges are performing optimally. Well, again, the question of funding comes in. Because when you talk about funding education, you're talking not just about the payment of salaries. You're talking about providing enabling learning environments. You're providing learning aids. You're providing teaching aids. You're providing all of that. So you see, it deviates from what you find the practice. Somebody goes up, establish a school that is naked without chairs, with children who do not even have curriculum to guide the teachers, and we wake up tomorrow and we say education is bad. So if basic education is not strong, secondary education is a bit weak, and then you're focusing on tertiary education. Where do you groom them to get there? Then again, let me tell you interesting part of the policy again. The policy says if you have technology education institutions as you have them, that each of them should operate production outfits. So it means that every technical college, every university of technology, and everyone who has anything to do with technical vocation should actually have a production unit. By so doing, the town has met the gown. You provide real services. So if I ask you, who manufactured the chair you are sitting in? Which of our technical colleges and outfits? How is the linkage between the factories and then the vocational schools?
I know there has been, series of calls for, to rejig the curriculum. And from all you're saying now, it's already there, because by the time you get to JSS 3 and you're required to know, to learn one, a skill or the other,
policy provisions.
Exactly. So it is expected that maybe by the time you get to the university, maybe you're already doing something, handmade stuff, so that
there's a difference between what's policy availability. Policy implementation, they are two different things. Now, that takes me back to funding.
It's actually the problem now. Is that what you're saying?
To a great extent, because it takes us back to where the conversation starts. You talk about ASU. How many of our institutions are viable by themselves without depending on government funding? There is a preponderance of thoughts where you believe that government has to fund everything 100%. I am not saying it shouldn't be possible. But run these models. I was in a particular meeting and we're having this conversation. And somebody said, pick up one of the schools you have abroad. What is their annual income? How efficiently are these institutions run? It was embarrassing some years ago, if you remember, the budget for the University Commission that has a lot more about purchasing cars than actually about creating. So I say that to say this. Coming from the point, I remember then as a commissioner, I sat down with head of institution and I visited a technical institution. And I asked them, how much have you generated from this institution? From all your trade crafts. I mean, the home economics department can provide the catering for the entire school. That tells me it's big business by itself. All the vast land that we have, once upon a time, school farm was a thing. School farms were producing yams. They were producing a whole lot of all that. So the goal of education is educational institutions meant to be as weak as we are operating them now, strictly relying on what comes from federal? Or is it that it is actually meant to also, by its activity, by its expertise, generate income? Now you spend a lot of money training in people. How many of the technological institutions are generating any kind of revenue? And I love this conversation in a meeting that we had before. And I'm happy it's still under the current minister and in the Forum of Commissioners. And I remember the then Executive Secretary for NBTE used an institution in the West, a technical, I think it's between Oyo or so, and talked about how the initial state government funding into that institution was supposed to have been an initial start-up capital for you to now begin to produce every other thing. And as at 2018 or 19, when we had that meeting, the idea was for every other colleges of a technical institution in Nigeria to learn from 3 institutions within Nigeria who are generating their own funds, enough to take care of themselves and even remit money back. I think that there's a disconnect between education fulfilling the promise of people who are self-reliant, of people who develop wealth, who grow wealth. And if we have not developed that set of people, it's a reflection on how, in the general society, we are spending much training in people, but at the same time, the same people are not becoming like, take for instance, I was told the average toy, something we learned from Asia, right?
Yeah.
Asia have taught us that you could have creativity, innovation, you could have a whole lot of people put to value, not just paper English now.
Well, unfortunately, we don't have much time. We have to go, but the point is well taken, that we all have what it takes to ensuring that the education sector begin to, really, perform the duty it's meant to, perform in the economy. It's been a pleasure chatting with you, Honorable Rosemary Ojochenemi Osikoya. Thank you very much. Bye for now. See you bright and early tomorrow.